Hey friends, in this video you're gonna learn how to make this awesome quiz. Let's click the button to start the quiz. First, this is a few rules of the quiz. You can change it to your own. There we have an exit quiz button and a continue button. If you click the continue, the quiz will be start. There we have the question with multiple answers, the timer and the timeline. What does HTML stand for? And we all know it stands for hypertext markup language. Let's click it, and that's the correct answer. If you choose the correct answer, it will highlight it with this green color and a tick mark. And you can go to next question. Let's click the next query. And this time there is another question. If we click an incorrect answer, for example, the CSS stands for cascading style sheet, but you want to select the wrong answer. If you click a wrong answer, the software will show you the correct answer, and it also highlight your answer with a red color and shows you selected the incorrect answer. Let's click next query, and this time we don't want to answer, and we want to just wait for the timer to be finished. If you don't choose any question and before the timer ends, it will automatically select the correct answer for you, and that's it, and it doesn't count it for you. Okay, it will not be count. Let's go to next, and this time let's select the correct answer, and there you go. Now let's click an incorrect question answer, and there you go. Once the quiz is finished, it shows you a complete message, and it also shows you how good you are, and it says I was nice, I got 2 out of 5. So I answered 2 questions out of 5. You can put multiple questions as much as you want. And there we have a replay quiz and a quiet quiz buttons. If you click replay quiz, the quiz will be start again. So you understand how this application works. Now let's see how to make it. I'm inside my project folder. Let's create a folder, and I call it Quiz App, and I open the Visual Code and drag and drop my quiz folder inside it. Once done, I make a file. I call it index.html, and I make the basic HTML5 structure. I give it a title, awesome, quiz app. After that, I want to import the Google font library. Sorry, not the Google font, but the font awesome library. So I just put it after the title. Once done, I'm going to start creating the structure of this application. The first thing I need to create is the quiz, the start button. Okay, so this will be the start quiz button. We make a div with a class of start button, and inside this div I create a button and I call it a start quiz. To show you everything for you, I run it with the live server and divide my screen into half. Okay, now you can see everything much better. And there is my button. Okay, after the button I want to create the info box. I will create this info box. For that I make another div with a class of info box, and inside this info box the first thing I need to do is to make it style. To do that I make another div with a class info title and put some title to it. And after that I'm going to make a div with a class of info list, and there I make a list of my rules. I can put my rules in here with a div class of info, and I can write my rules, and I close my info list div. After that I need to create a button, so I make another div with a class of buttons, and inside this one I make two buttons, one exit quiz and another continue. I give them the class of quit and restart, and my info box has been finished. After the info box I need to create the quiz box, so it will be the quiz box. Inside the quiz box, first of all I make a div with a class of quiz box, and inside this quiz box I want to make a header, and I write my header. Inside the header, what I want to make, inside the header I made a div with a class of title, and I put a title in here, and after that I made another div with a class of timer, and inside this timer div I made two other divs with a class of time left text, which is the time left, and after that I made another div with a class of timer second, and I give it 15 second for that, and I close my timer, and after that I made another div with timeline, which will be our timeline. Okay, and after that I make a section. After the header I make a section. Inside this section what I'm gonna do is I make a div with a class of QUI text. This will be the text of QUI. So what is this? This is the QUI text, and here I have inserted options from JavaScript, so it all comes from the JavaScript. You don't need to write anything inside this div. Okay, after that I make another div with a class of option list, and this will be the list of those options, and just like before I don't write anything inside this div because it comes from the JavaScript. Okay, and that's it. My section is finished. After the section I make a footer of quiz box. This will be a footer. Let's create it. For the footer I use footer. Inside the footer what I want to do is to create a div with a class of total QUI. Inside this div, just like before, it comes from the JavaScript. Okay, this is the list. Okay, this is the questions, and this is the options, and this is the count number. Okay, and after doing that what I need to do is to close this div, and after this div I make a button, and I give it a class of next button. This is my next button, and I also want to give it text of next QUI. Let's save it. Okay, and my quiz box is finished. After the quiz box what we have is the result box. So let's create the result box. Let's create a div with a class of result box, and inside this result box what I want to create a div with a class of result box, and inside this one I put an icon, a div with a class of icon, and inside that I just put this FA crown from the font awesome. This icon, I put this icon, and after that I make another div which is a div with a class of complete text, and I put this you have completed the quiz inside it, and after that I make another div with a class of score text, and this comes from the JavaScript. This is the result text. Okay, and after that I need to make buttons, so I make a div with a class of buttons, and I make two buttons, one button with a class of restart, and I say reply quiz, another button with a class of quit, and it will be quit the quiz. And by doing that our result box has been finished, and this is how it looks. It doesn't look so nice, but we'll give it some style by using CSS. So to do that I make another file, I call it style.css, and I just need to link it with my HTML file. So after the font ISOM library, I use link CSS to link my style.css. I go to my style.css. The first thing I need to do is to import the Google font library in here. So I imported the Google font library and I removed the default margin padding and etc. And I also set my font family to Poppins and Sans Serif. After that, I select my body and I give it a background color. And this is the background color I set for my background. And as you can see, my application got some design. Okay, let's continue styling. Now I want to give some style to selection. This is the selection. I want to change the style. So I say selection and I give it a color and a background. Let's save and see if it works. Yes, now it has changed. After the selection, I want to select my start button and give some style to my start button. So if you go to our HTML file, this is our start button with a class start button. So I go to my style, use dot to select it by class, and I give it some design. Okay, I don't want to apply this design only to a start button because they have multiple buttons, so I want to select them all and apply one design to all of them. Okay, so comma, after that I have this info box, I want to select that one, and I also want to select, you have to make sure to put a dot before the name, so select it by class, and after that I want to select the quiz box, and also the result box. And let's give it some design. So I set the position to absolute. I give it a top and left of 15%, 50% to top and 50% to left, so it will be at the center. And I translate. The translate is to make sure it is at the center of the page, and also give it a box shadow. If you don't know what is the box shadow, there is a complete tutorial on my channel, you can check. Let's save, and this is how our application looks like. Everything is inside the page. Okay, and after that what I want to do is I want to select the info box and I give it two state, active and inactive. So this will be the active info. Okay, active info. Not just that, we have to give activation and deactivation to multiple things in our application, not just the info box. After the info box, I'm going to select two more things. I selected the info box, I selected the quiz box, and I just add this active info class for this one, and this is active quiz, and for result box I add active result. And let's give them all a design. What I want to do is I want to change the opacity, z-index, and few other things. So I applied the opacity to 1, z-index to 5, pointer events to auto, and I also put it at the center. After that, I want to select my start button and give it some design. So start button from the button, and I want to apply some design to the. So I give the font size of 25 pixel, a font weight, a color, a padding, and I set the outline to none, and I give the border of none and a border radius of 5 pixel, and I set the background color to white, and the cursor is pointer. Here you can see this is my button, because there we have many other things you can see that clearly, but we will fix that in a moment. Okay, after that I want to select the info box and apply some design to my info box. So for my info box, I give the width of 540 pixel, I give the background color, a border radius of 5 pixel, I set it at the center of page, also change the scale to 0.9, I change the opacity to 0, that's why you can see that right now. I changed the pointer event to none, and also translation all in 0.3 second east. This is the transition when I click the start button, so our info box will be open smoothly and with kind of animation. Okay, after that what I want to do is to give some style. From info box I want to select the info title, this one. Let's go to the info box. There we have the title. Let's select that one and give it some design. Okay, I give it a height of 16 pixel, a weight of 100%, a border radius 1 pixel, solid and light gray. And after that I set the display to flex, and I align the item with the center. I give it a padding, a border radius, a font size, and a font weight. After that I want to select from the info box. From the info box I want to select the info list, because we have an info list. This is the list of rules, and we want to apply some design for that one. And I give it some padding and save. And after that I want to select from info box, and inside the info list I want to select the info itself. Let's change the info list like this. Info list. Let's save here. Let's save here. And from info box I want to select info list, and from there I want to select the info itself and give it some design. Okay, I give the margin and a font size. After that, from info box and info list info, I wanna give a style to my span. I give it a font weight of 600 in a color. Okay, that is enough for info box. After that, the only thing that left is the info box buttons. So let's give some design to info box and buttons. And there I set the height to 16 pixel. I display flex. I align the items in the center and justify content at the end, flex end, and I put a padding on the right side, and I give the border top 1 pixel solid, and this is light gray. Okay, after that I wanna give a design to the button itself. So from info box, buttons, and from buttons I want to select the button itself and give it some style. So I give the margin, height, width 100 pixel, font size to 16 pixel, a font weight, a cursor to pointer. I remove the border, and I also remove the outline. I give the border radius, and also I give the border, and I set the transition all to 0.3 second east. Okay, after that I want to select the quiz box and give some design to my quiz box. So let's go to the quiz box, selected by class. Okay, again let's give it some design. I give it a weight of 550 pixel. I give the background color of white. I give it the border radius and a translation to make it the center, and give it make it a little bit smaller. I change the opacity to 0, so I hide it at the moment. I set the pointer event to none, so nobody can select it, and a translation at the end. After that, from the quiz box I want to give design to each element. So first one is the title, so let's say select from the quiz box, select the header and give it some design. I set the position to relative. I change the z index, so it will be at the at the top, not very top. That's how we set it. I give it a height of 70 pixel, and I give the padding, background color, border radius, and I display everything in a flex. I align items in the center and justify content space between. This is the header of my quiz box. That is where the timer and etc. is located. Okay, and after that I want to select, and I want to give design to each of this one from the header. So the first thing, from the quiz box header, I want to select the title and give it some design. I give it a font size and a font weight, and after that I select the timer from quest box, and I give the color, background, border, height, padding, border radius, and I set the display to flex and lighten in the center and justify content space between, and also give it some width. Okay, after that, let's see what we have. After that, we have from the timer time left, so I select the time left text and I give it a font weight, font size, and make it non-selectable. And after that, there we have the timer seconds, and I select that one, the timer second, and I give the font size, a font weight, a height, width, color, border radius, line height, text align to center, background color of kind of white, and I give it a border, and I also set it non-selectable. And after that, we have the timeline itself. So let's select the timeline. I select the timeline from the quest box header, and I give it a position of absolute. I set the bottom 0 pixel, and I give it a left of 0, a height of 3 pixel, and background of this color. And that's how our timeline is made. Then we use later the JavaScript to give it some animation. After that, we have the section. Let's give some style to the section itself. So I select my section, I give it a padding, a background color, and that's it. Let's save. Let me change the font a little bit. Maybe it doesn't look good. Let's make it 17. Okay, now it looks much better. After the section, we have the section query text. So let's select the section query text, and I give the font and a font weight. And after that, I have the option list. So I selected the option list, this one, and I give it some padding and display to block. And after that, after the option list, we have the options itself. So let's select the option itself. I said give it a background color, a border radius, padding, font size, a margin at the top of this one. So I set the cursor to pointer, I add a translation, and I display everything in a flex box and a layout in the center and justify content space between. This is the list of the question which comes from the JavaScript, and this is the design which we apply for that one. And because this is a kind of list of options, I want to select the last child and give it a margin of 0 pixels. And because these are questions, and I should be able to hover over these options, so I select my options and add a hover, and when it hovers, I change the color and the background color and also the border. And because these are questions, when the user select, there should be two states, the correct and incorrect. So first I make the correct. So from the section option list and option, if this is correct, I add this dot correct class to it, and I change the color to green, and I give the background color and a border. And if the question is not correct, I just like I did, I select the option and I add this incorrect class, and I change the color to some kind of red, and I change the background color and border. And after that, I also want to make it after once you selected that answer, I want to make it some kind of, you can't select it anymore, so I make a disable option for this one. So I add another class called disabled, and I change the pointer event to none. And because we have some icons on the options, I select the icons and I give them some height, width, borders, and a border radius of to make it like a center, you give 50%, and then I align the text as center. I give the font text a pointer to events to none, and translation to 0.3 second, and I give it also a line height. This is for my icon. And after that, because there's two kind of icon, one is the tick and the other one is not the tick, so I first make the tick, and for that reason, from the icon icon class, I add a tick class, and I give it a color of green, and I give it a border color and a background color. And if the question is not correct, I add another class and call it cross. That is the cross. Okay, I give it a red kind of color, I give it a background color to this color, and I give it a border color. And after that I have the footer section, so let's apply some style for the footer. So I select my footer, I give it a height of 16 pixel, I give it a padding at the right side, I can set everything, display everything in the flex box, align the item in the center, justify content space between. If you don't know what is the flex box, there's a video in my channel, you can watch it. And then I change the border top 1 pixel, solid and light gray, so I add a border, a top border, this kind of line, okay, for the footer. After that, if you see the footer, we have this total query. So from the footer I select the total query, and because there will be a span, I want to give some design to the span. I want to display everything in a flex, and I want the user shouldn't be able to select it, so I set the user select to none. And because my span have a paragraph, so I select that paragraph and give it a font weight and a padding. And from those paragraph I want to select the first child of the paragraph, and I give it a padding left of 0, so it starts from complete left. And after that, my footers have some buttons, so let's give some design to this button. I select my button from the footer, I give it a height, padding, font size, font weight, and I set the cursor to pointer. I remove the border and outline, I give it a color of white, I give the border is 5 pixel, I give the background color kind of blue, and I give the border 1 pixel it in this blue color. I also apply some line height to 10 pixel. I change the opacity to 0, you can see that right now. And I also want to set the pointer event to none, and I also want to transform, make the scale a little bit smaller, and I add a translation 0.3 second, and that's all for my button. And because my button should be, I should have a hover for my button, so I had a hover for my button and change the background color a little bit. And because I want to make my button show in height, I made another class for my button, this is show, and I change the opacity, because right now you can see this because the opacity is 0, and for this reason the opacity I set it to 1, and I make the Python events to auto, and also change the scale a little bit. After the quiz box, I have the result box. This is the box which will be displayed at the end of quiz. So let's select it. So select the result box, I give it a background color, a border radius, I display everything in a flex box, I give it some padding for the top and for the right, I give it a width. If you don't know how this works, the first one element is the top padding, this one is the right padding, and if you have anything else, this will be the bottom padding, and if you have more, this will be the left padding. Okay, it works like that. Then I set the width to 450 pixel, alignment to the center, and I change the flex direction to column, and also justify on the center. I change the transform to make it center, and change the scale to a little bit smaller, and at the moment I put the opacity to 0 so you can see that, and also change the pointer events to none, and I set the translation to 0.3 second, and you can see now there is nothing display on the screen because I changed the opacity to 0 for all of them. Okay, after that, if I check the result box, there I have icon, so I must apply some design to form my icon. So from the result box, I select the icon, I set the font size to 100 pixel, I change the color, and I give it some 10 pixel margin at the bottom. And after that, I have this div with a complete text, which will display a complete text. You have completed the quiz, so we have to select that one and give it some design. So I selected the complete text, and I set the font size to 200 pixel, and I also give it some font weight. And after that, I have this score which comes from the JavaScript. I select that one and I display that one in a flex. I give the margin of 10 pixel at the top and 0 on the right. I change the font size to 18 pixel, and I also give it a font weight. And because my score text has a span, and inside the span I have a paragraph, so I have got to give it some design. So I select that one, select that paragraph, and I give it a padding and a font weight. And after that, I have buttons. I select from the result box my buttons, and I set the display everything in a flex box, and I give it a margin. And inside this button div, I have two buttons. So let's apply some design to the buttons itself. So I select the button from the buttons of result box. I give them some margin to the right 10 pixel, height of 45 pixel. I give the padding 20 pixel at the right, and 0 to top, font size to 18 pixel. I set the font weight to 500. I set the cursor to pointer. I remove the border and outline, and also change the border radius to 5 pixel, and I give it some border and also a translation. And after that there is a button called restart and quit. So I select my restart button and I change this color to white and I give it this background color, and we have to apply some design for the hover of this restart button, and that's easy. I just had hover and change the background color, and after that I have this quit button. So I select that quit button and I give it this color and a background color, and just like before I have to give it some hover style. So I select it and add the hover and I change the color and background color, and that's enough for my coding of style.css. If you save, there we have a nice kind of thing, but it doesn't do any functionality. It doesn't have any functionality. That's why I have to make a JavaScript file to give it functionality. Before doing that, I make a folder and I call it JS, and I put my JavaScript files inside this folder. Inside this JS folder, I make a file and I call it questions.js. This is where I make an array of objects of my questions. Okay, the first thing I have to do inside this file is to make an array. So what I do is I make a variable called let, and I name it question. I make a let of a variable called questions, and this is equal to, and I want to make an array. So all of my question will be inside this array. So inside this array, I want to put my question into objects. So I make an object, and inside this object, I have few properties. The first property is the num. This means the number of question, or it can be an ID. After that, I have the question itself, what does HTML stand for, and I have an answer for that one. This is the answer, this is the correct answer, and after that I have options where you put your answers, like 4 questions, 4 answers, and if the answer is same as answer, that will be a correct answer. So options should be also an array because there is multiple answers, so I make it kind of array. I make it an array, and inside this array I add few things, and that is the list of answers. I make few answers for this one, and I separate them by comma, and that's how you had a question, and just copy paste this object and make multiple questions. So let's add a comma, and this is all of my questions. I have question number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, 5, and you can add a comma and just like this copy this object and add more and more questions, but you have to make sure to increase the num. So if you want to add another question, make it numbers num 6, num 7, num 8, and go just like that, and make sure this answer should be same of one of this one. That's how the JavaScript app will match it. Okay, after this I save it. I make another file inside my JS folder. I call it Script.js, and this is where the magic comes from. So the first thing I need to do is to select my HTML elements, everything I have here. I want to select the info list and etc. So I'm going to select all of them. To show you an example, I want to select the start button, this button. I give it a name, start button, and this is equal to, from the document, I want to use the query selector, and I want to select this one by class. So if you go to your index.html, this start button, inside my start button, make sure to add a dot. I have the button itself, this button. That's how we select an element, an HTML element inside the JavaScript. And just like that, I want to select few more things. I selected the info box, the exit button, the continue button, the quest box, the result box, the option list, the timeline, the time text, and time count. I selected everything and put them inside these variables. Once you did that, I want to make a function if the start quest button is clicked or not. To do that, it's very easy. I want to select my start button, and if it is clicked, so on click, and this is equal to an arrow function. It runs an arrow function, and what this arrow function does, this arrow function select the info box, and I wanna add a class of active. So whenever I click on this start button, it add a class of info, active info, to show the info box. It starts the showing info box, which is the box that shows the rules of this quiz. Now let's check if it really works or not. If I click my start quiz, and there we go, we have the info box. And I think I didn't save the style.css. Let's save it, and yeah, the new style has been applied. Okay, let's go back to my Script.js. After making this start, giving some functionality to my start button, I want to check if the exit quiz button is clicked or not. There we have exit quiz, and I want to give it some functionality. So how we can do it? I select exit button, and I add an event listener, which is unclicked, and it runs our arrow function, and I want to remove this active info from the info box, and that's how we hide our info box. Just let's see how it works. If I click on exit quiz, and there it go, it removed the active info. Okay, and after that I want to check if continue quiz button is clicked. There you see we have the continue, which opens the questions for us. So I want to make a function for that one. So we select the continue button, and on clicked it runs this arrow function, which first select the info box and remove this active info to hide it, and after that we also select the quiz box and add the active quiz to show the quiz box. We also call the show questions. This function called the show questions, it will run to load questions, and we also run this query counter and start timer, and I set 15. This is the amount of time, and I also run this start timer line function, which are the functions we will make in a moment. Let's save, and let's see if it works. Yeah, it works, but there we have nothing because we didn't create these functions yet, so no worries. And after that I want to make few more variables. Some variables I want to make, like timer value and etc. So let's make them. I make a timer value, which is the amount of max time for each question, a query count, a query dam, user score, counter, counter line, white value, which we'll use them later in the code. There we should have two more buttons, which is the quiet and restart. We have to select them. So I select the restart quiz and quiz quiet from the result box. I select this button. This is how you select an element from the element. So I already selected the result box by using query selector, and from that one I use another query selector to select this restart from the buttons, and just like that for the quit. Okay, after that I wanna check if the restart quiz button is clicked and make a function for that one. So I make a function. I wanna see if this restart is on click, and this arrow function, what it does. First of all, I wanna add an active class to my quiz box to show the quiz box, and after that I want to remove active result to hide the result box, and after that I make few more variables which we already created. We're gonna change its values, and after that we run these functions, which the first one calling to show question functions to take the questions, and after that we run this queue counter, which passes the queue nump value to the counter. and after that we ran a clear interval function to clear the counter, and we also cleared the counter lines, and we also run this start timer, which we call it to start the timer function, and after that I call this function to start timer line. And after doing that, I select that time text, and I want to change the text content to time left. Okay, and after that I hide the next button for now. You see how it works? We can't see anything yet because we didn't create these functions. Once we did that, after that what I want to check if the quite quiz button is clicked. Let's make a function for that one. Okay, so I selected my quite quiz, and on clicked it runs this function. What it does, it reloads the windows. That's easy, right? And after that I need to select two more elements, which is the next button from the footer, and also I want to select the total queue from the footer. So I select both of them and put them inside next button and button queue counter variables. After that I want to check if next queue button is clicked or not. Sorry, if it's clicked it runs a function. Let's make this function. And we selected the next button and we click it, it runs this error function. First it checks if question count is less than total question length. We first check if the question is less than the length of the question. If it is, we increase the quit value. We also increase the queue num value to select each of them one by one, and then we run these functions and pass few values to them, and after that we change the text content of time text to time left, and after that I remove the show class from this next button to hide the next button. If that's not the case, if quit count is less than -1, what do I want to do? I want to clear the interval and also clear the counter line, and also call the show result function. It means the quiz is finished. If you don't know what it does, I write line by line comment for each of them. Once we did that, the next thing to do is to get questions and options from this array, from this question.js. I want to get them. So how we can do that? Actually it's very easy. I make a function and I call it show questions, and I pass a parameter called index. Inside this function I make a constant of query text, and I select the query text, and after that I create a new span div tag for questions and options and pass the value using array index. So this is how we get the questions from this array and display them into my application. First I make query tag, and this will be a span of question. If you don't know where this question come from, this is the name of my array. And what we have inside this, we have object of which has a num, question, answer, and options, and we use them in here. So the first thing I want to do is I want to select the num, which is the ID, and I want to select the questions, and because in options we have few different answers, I use the question in the index of the question, and I select these options from this object, and because this is an array I can select each of them. So I select the array 1, which is the answer, first answer, the second, and just like that I put all of the answers inside this div with a class of option, which we a moment ago give them a style on the CSS. Once we did that, we use inner HTML for my query text to put this query tag, which is this one. Okay, sorry, this one. Okay, and after that I want to also select option list, and by using inner HTML I change it is inner HTML. Actually I am adding a new div tag inside my options. So what I do, this is option list of answers, and I add this 4 answers for my list. It is not, if it's confusing, if you check the code you will understand it much better. Okay, after that I make another constant with option name, and what it does, I select from the option list I select the option itself. So this is the option, each of them is an option. I select them and put them inside the option, and after that I check. So I check if what it does is set on click attribute to all available options, so I make them clickable. Once I made each of them clickable, what I do, I want to run the function when I click on each of these answers. So whenever I clicked by using this onClicked events, what it does, it runs this option selected function with the parameter of this. So we pass the answer to this option selected function. After that I have to create a new div for my icons. So I make a variable called tick icon and a cross icon, and inside this one I make an icon for them. By using the font awesome library I can easily create these icons, and I put them inside these variables. The next thing we're gonna do is a little bit hard, but before doing that let's check my application, let's test it. Continue. Okay, it does nothing because we didn't create all the function. Now I want to create the function, this function option selected, to check if the question is correct or not. So let's create that function, and that's my function. Okay, this function is a little bit big, but I explain it, no worries. What this function does, I make a function called option selected. If the user click on an option, which was this function, and we pass a parameter called this, and inside this function we create that parameter which is the answer. So we pass that one. First it runs the clear interval function, then we clear the counter, and we also clear that counter line, which is the line that goes. Okay, after that I get the selected answer from the user and put it inside a variable called user answer, and I also get the correct answer from this array, which is the question array and answer. That's the question, the correct question. So from the questions I select answer, that is the correct answer. And after that I get all the option items. So from the option list I select the children length. That's how I get all options and put them inside this all options. And after that, by using if, first I check if user selected option is equal to array's correct answer, which means any of these answers user selected, I check if that is same as this one or not. That's what this function does. If that's true, I add 1 score to the user. So I check if the user answer is equal to correct answer. If that's the case, I increase the user score by 1 point, and after that I select the answer and add this correct class to this class list. And after that I select this answer and I use insert adjacent HTML to what it does. This one add a tick icon, which we created, this one, to the end of that answer. Okay, that's how we add the tick mark, the correct tick mark, when the user answered the correct question. And we also print correct answer on the console. And this is for your own case, this is for testing purpose. Okay, if that's not the case, we use else. If the question is not correct, what we does, first we add this incorrect to the answer class list, that red kind of thing, and after that I want to add this cross icon to the selected answer. So by using insert adjust HTML I can do that. I want to use before end, so at the end of this I add this cross tag, which is this one which we created. Okay, once we did that, also console log wrong answer. And what this section does, if you saw the application, if we didn't answer or the timer ends, it automatically select the correct answer. what we do, we want to search for all of the answers. If there is an option which matches with the answer of this answer from the array, what we do, we add that green color to that answer. Okay, what we do, we add a green color to match option, and after that we add a tick icon to that matched. So this is the automatic thing. Okay, if the timer is finished, it automatically select the correct answer and it changes color to green. It will also add that tick icon tag to it, and we will display this auto selected correct answer on the console log. Once we do that, after that this is all inside this if, and this is inside this if. This is when we didn't answer the question. Okay, if we answer a wrong question, this part of code will be executed and is automatically select the correct answer for us. Okay, after that I wanna check if once the user select an option, I wanted to disable the selection. Okay, so how we do that, I want to select them all, that's why I use for, and from the option list I select that it is children's, and I want to add this disable class to them, so I make all of them disable. Once I do that, I want to show the next button if user want to continue, so I select the next button and I add this show to its class list. Okay, so the checking function has been done. Now I want to make the result section where we answered all of the question, and I want to make to display the user if how many score he got and how he performed. So for that reason I make another function, I call it function result, and inside this function, first of all, I remove the active info and the quiz info, both of these box, and I want to display that result box which we created in our HTML. Okay, this section I want to display that one, so I add an active result class to it, to this result box. After that I make another constant of score ticks, and from result box I select this score ticks. I want to do some checking. First we check if user score is more than 3. What we want to do, we want to create a new span tag and pass the user score number and total question, how many questions he answered. So I make a variable called score tag, and I make a tag, a paragraph tag, and I say in configuration and an emoji, and after that I want to display the user score. Let's make it a little bit bigger, and I use plus to add more, and after that I make another paragraph and I add this question link, so it means you answered 2 or 3 from total amount of question. And after that what I want to do, by using inner HTML, I put this score tag which we created to the score ticks. What is the score ticks? This is the score ticks. Okay, I want to put this message to the score ticks that you performed good, the configuration, and etc. And we also display the user score and question link. If the user is else if the user score is more than 1, so we just like we did before, we make a score tag and we make a message, and by using inner HTML we put it inside this score ticks. And if when we use else, if the user score is less than 1, it means he didn't answer anything, we make a score tag and we display this message: sorry, you got only the amount of score from total question, and we put it inside this score text by using inner HTML. That is how we display the result. The result is show result function is completed. Now we want to make that timer function. So we make a function called start timer and we pass time. This is the function which counts the timer. So first we make a counter, and this is equal to a set interval. of what? Of timer. Where this time camp, that is, if we go at the top of this code, if we run the set timer, we pass a variable with it. Okay, we pass that variable whenever we start the application. So inside this one we make a function called timer. Inside this start timer, and what it does, first we change the value of time count with the time value. Okay, and after that we decrement the time value, so the time is going to down from 10, 9, 8, just like that. If the timer is less than 9, if the timer is less than 9, what I want to make a variable called add 0, and from timer count I join it with this. I select from the text content of time count, and what I do, I select this time content time count, and from text content of this time count, and I add a 0 and this add 0. What this actually means, what this two line of code mean, if we see we have 10 or 11, this is displayed like this, but if we come to 9, it will display like this, 09, 08. We don't want to do that like that. That's why we write this two line of code to make it more nice. After that we check if the time is smaller than 0, it means the timer has been finished. What we do, first we clear the interval and pass the counter parameter. After that I change the time ticks to time off. So I change the time ticks content to time off. It means the timer has been finished. And after that I get all options item using this line of code. After that I get the correct answer from array using make a variable called correct answer equal to from the question. I want to select the answer, this answer. Okay, I want to select that answer, and I want to make a for loop and loop through all options. What I do inside this loop, if there's an option which is matched to an array answer, I want to select that one, and after that I add a green color to the match option. Also add the tick icon to the match, and I console log. So what this does, if whenever our timer is finished and user didn't select any of answers, I want to search through the answer list and I want to find out the correct answer. When I found it, I want to add a green color and also that tick icon, so it means this was the correct answer but you didn't select. Okay, and after that I also want to make them unselectable. So for that reason I use another for loop to loop through all options, and I add a class of disable to all of the option list by using this option list children and this I parameter. Okay, once we did that, I want to also display the next button. When the timer is finished, it will display the next button. What we do, we select the next button and add class of show, and that's a lot. But if you remember, our application had a timeline. We have to make that function for that timeline. Our application have a timeline, as you can see in here. So let's make the function. I make a function called start timeline, and I pass this time parameter. And what it does, first of all, I make a counter line, and inside this one I make a set interval with a timer and 29. And after that I make a function called timer. I upgrade the time value with 1. So it means when the time goes on, I wanna increase the width of this timeline. How I do this, I select the timeline, and by using style and width, I want to add this time plus pixel to this one, so it increases the pixel width of this element, and that's how we got a timeline. If the time is greater than 549, if the time value is greater than 59, I want to clear the interval. So I use clear interval and I pass this counter line. So it means when the timer it's completed, the line is completed, it clears everything. Okay, that's how the timeline works. And at the end I want to make another function. I call it query counter, and it passes this index parameter. What it does, when it create a new span tag and it pass the question number and total of question, it means there we have this amount of questions. How we do that? We create a variable called total query count tag, and we make a span inside this one. And what this span got, inside the span we have a paragraph with the index, and we also have the question length, which means the total of question. And after that I want to add it or inject it or put it inside my bottom quiz counter. By using inner HTML I put this total quiz to my bottom query counter, and by doing that my application is finished. Now let's see if it really works. If I click start quiz, refresh. Before doing that I see a problem in here because I see a red thing. What is the problem? Okay, I didn't close my start timer function. Let's close it. And now we have it. Okay, now the problem is finished. Make sure to close every function you start. Okay, let's run my application and see if it works. If I click on start quiz, this is my rules. I can exit, or I can click continue, and there we go. This is the list of my questions, and I can select this one. First let's wait, and if the timer is finished, let's see what will happen. You see, this is how the timeline works by increasing the width. Okay, there we got it. If we don't select anything, it automatically selects and it disable everything. Let's click next query, and this time let's select the correct answer, and there we go. Let's click next, and this time let's click the wrong answer, and there we go, it works. Let's click next, let's select the correct answer, and let's select a wrong answer, and yeah, it works. And let's see what will show us for the result. And there we go, you completed the quiz at a nice, and you got 2 out of 5, which was the total amount of question. And replay quiz, yeah, it works. So I hope you guys learned something from this video, and this video was about how to make a quiz application. You can modify it and make it, maybe you add more question, or you maybe get these questions from a database or an API. You can do a lot of stuff. Now you understand how to create a quiz application. If you have any question about this video, let me know at the comment below. And if you like this video, make sure to like, subscribe, and press the bell icon. Have a great time.